Hello, 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 amazing investors. I am excited to talk about this powerful topic. And this is what I actually go through with my clients. These four major areas that I've noticed, especially with investors and entrepreneurs, these have the biggest impact on them. And surprisingly, they don't actually notice them, or they notice them at a very surface level. So I'll go through these quickly. If you want, I can dive deep into each of them as we move forward, but definitely share your questions and thoughts, and if they're true for you, and how are you working through these. The first one, I'll say the one that's everybody's aware of. It's your number one is your well-being. And your well-being can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Now, most people who are at a certain level, they are aware of their physical well-being and mental well-being to some degree, mostly physical. They will exercise, work out, they will eat right, or they will try these things. It's very apparent. I mean, you look at yourself every day in the mirror, so you can tell. Everybody knows that. Now, the areas that are uncommon is the mental, emotional, spiritual. I won't go too deep into it. I actually walk my clients through in a very deep way. I will talk about the spiritual side that's connected to your purpose as the fourth point, and that's the one that people are least aware of, or it's the thing that they're struggling with the most, one or the other. So of course, if you're not taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're going to feel like you're dragging your body around. You're going to feel like you can't focus on things. You're going to feel disconnected emotionally. You're not going to be feeling like you're engaged with the world. If you are not spiritually connected, you don't go to the depths of who you are or your faith or whatever that is. It's not always about religion. It can always be also be about your sense of purpose, but it has one of the biggest impacts because, of course, our body does everything. Without this, nothing moves forward. We kind of take it for granted. So that's number one. It has the biggest impact. Now, most people kind of take care of this, but at a very surface level. When I go deeper with clients, there are a lot, and this is a quote that applies in this area. Common sense is not always common practice, by Brennan Burchard. That in this area, a lot of people know what are common sense areas. You need to eat well, you need to get fresh air, sunlight, you need to move consistently, but we don't do them enough. Either we don't do them or we don't do them enough. And especially with the sedentary lifestyles we all lead, it's actually very hard to do at times because we get into the habit of being in one place. I have my gym right there in front of me, so it reminds me constantly to move. So I force myself to move a lot of times, or at least the reminder forces me to move. And then the second biggest one that people say that they know what that is, but they're not actually, they don't go anywhere towards it. And that's your sense of awareness. And awareness is much bigger than your mindset or personal development or any of this stuff. There are a lot of people who read books every day. There are a lot of people who listen to a lot of podcasts, but when you actually dive deep, their awareness is very shallow. And I'll give it this. Most people live at the level of collective mind, which means that their visions, their desires, the things that drive them is very collective in nature. They haven't dived deep to understand who they really are and what matters to them. Now, that doesn't mean that they will create something completely different from everybody else, and they will, of course, we take things from our environment, but when you look at people who are incredibly unique, just pay attention. They do odd things. When they've figured out who they are, they don't tend to do things that other people do. Just not because they're they're forcefully trying to do different things just to appear unique, but they are that. And the other side of it is there are a lot of people that try to be unique and they do weird things to copy people who are unique, and it comes off as weird and odd. And why is this person doing all this stuff? And they're just trying to mimic uniqueness, but they're not. Or more accurately, they haven't connected to that unique aspect of themselves. But when you watch people who are unique, they tend to do odd things, not because they're trying to prove something to others, or they're trying to do it to prove a point, or they have a chip on their shoulder. They just do those things because that's part of their nature. We're unique, just like the fingerprints that we have. Even though we look like other human beings and our biological makeup is similar to them, our mental processes are similar, our social makeup is similar, but when you look at the details, it can be very unique. And whenever I dive deep with my clients in this area, now most people don't reveal their unique aspect of themselves to the closest people to them, even the person close to them, which could be their spouse or close best friends in their life, they don't show that side of themselves. In fact, it's hard to even admit that side of themselves to themselves, because it can be scary and vulnerable to admit those parts of us, whether they're positive or negative. So awareness requires you to dive deep into different parts of you. And as soon as you do that, it's the first thing that comes up in growth is discomfort. One of the funniest things as clients go through the coaching process with me, initially they don't feel good about anything because most people's idea of growth is that they're in the field of meadows, they're dancing around, they're having fun, they're excited and all that stuff. That's not what growth looks like. Growth is when you're actually very uncomfortable. Growth is, for example, to give a good example, is when you're at the gym and you're lifting, you might be enjoying the process, but you might be in pain too. You're pushing your muscles, it's hard for you, or you're going through a marathon, or some physical people can visualize it. You're sweating, it's hard, you're aching. That's what internal, emotional, mental, and spiritual growth looks like. You are in pain because you're facing your demons. And a lot of times it's incredibly uncomfortable. This is why most people don't want to go towards it, because your mind doesn't want you to go towards discomfort, because it gives you pain. But the way to growth and the way to enlightenment is usually through pain, not around pain, but through pain. And there's no way around it that I've seen so far. So most people's awareness is stuck on the surface and is stuck to social side, which means that they have a collective mind, not an individual mind. So they're stuck because they're trying to prove to others who they are and what they could be. And I've been there too. I've gone through that. And there are times where I have to dive deep and really ask myself, is this something that matters to me, or am I doing this because of something else, some weird obligation in my head, or some programming that I have from childhood, or some social obligation that I need to fulfill? So what I'm trying to communicate here is that if you see hints of you doing things to prove something to somebody else, or hints of you doing something because somebody else expects you to do, or to prove somebody wrong, or to show somebody something, these are all hints that you're not aware yet, or fully aware yet. And how does that affect you? That has one of the biggest impacts on you, which means that you could spend the next 10 to 20 years of your life approaching your life that way, and you get to the 20-year mark or 10-year mark, and you would think that you would be very happy. You might have built a business, you might have accumulated a lot of money, you might have created a life that you think is amazing. You get there and you will feel empty, because all that was for other people, and they don't even care. You are the one carrying them in your mind. And remember that the people that you have resentment towards, rage towards, anger towards, jealousy towards, whatever these kind of emotions towards, they're not even spending 2 minutes thinking about you, but you're carrying them in your heart and mind for decades and years. Ask me how I know. I know I've carried that for a long, long time. When I started to let go of these things, what I realized is that, you know what, I was carrying a huge weight unnecessarily. So are you carrying any of those things in your heart and your mind? Only you can be honest with yourself here. And it's very hard to admit, because it's uncomfortable to do so. It's very easy to just listen to podcasts and read books and get tips and tools out of it. But actually, the real growth happens when you dive into the discomfort. This is why most religious traditions have rites of passage. Most cultures have a rite of passage where you actually literally need to face death. And a lot of it is the egoic death, which means that you face your demons. And that is one of the processes I take my clients through. The areas that they're incredibly uncomfortable go towards, we walk through that in a coaching process. And on the other side of it, what they experience is themselves, the self that they've been seeking all their life, the joy, the peace, the excitement, the connection, the sense of bliss that a lot of spiritual teachers will talk about. It is all underneath the pain and the weight that you're carrying. And you're not even aware of it, because your mind wants to avoid it. Keep that in mind. So ask yourself, are you carrying all that and not facing it and kind of leaving it for later? Every human being knows that they have something inside that they haven't faced. And it's hard to, and I completely understand. I don't have judgment around it. If you are ready, dive deep. If you don't know how to, reach out to me and we can go through a process around that. And I can share some resources that will help you as well. The third one, I would say, especially for investors, is probably one of the most difficult ones. So if you're living an average life where you go to work, come home, and you end up just watching TV, nothing wrong with watching TV, or just you have a regular life where you kind of doing lawn work, watching TV, and weekends you have a few beers or you spend time with family, and you just repeat that over and over. And your life is kind of mundane and there's not much excitement, but it's not that bad either. It's comfortable. And if that makes you happy, that's great. And I'm not sharing this as a way to judge you, but if you have a life where you're building, where you're creating, where you're moving forward, you're building not just for yourself, but for your family and for the future generations. You're thinking about legacy, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of value, a model to leave behind for the future generations, whether those are for your kids, for your family members, the younger people in your community. If you're working hard to build something that nobody in your family had created in the past, and you feel a sense of purpose around that, then this part of your life will impact you the most. It generally impacts people the most, but especially if you're somebody who's trying to create financial freedom, legacy, a life that has fulfillment, purpose, joy, and excitement and growth in it. The person that's closest to you and anybody that's around you, they have one of the biggest impact on you outside of your own awareness. And even if you are aware, keep in mind that we are a social creature. We are deeply affected by the people around us. And a lot of people underestimate how much this is. And I just went through a process with a client, three or four clients I'm going through where they can see now they realize how much of an effect their life partner has on them. And you can clearly see when your life partner, whether it be your husband and wife, is supportive, they're understanding, they're accepting, they're cheering you on, you tend to go fast, you tend to accelerate. No matter what is in front of you, you will break through. Even if your mental makeup is not quite there, even if your mindset is not fully there, you know that you have somebody supporting you, somebody that's cheering you on. If you feel doubt in that area, if you don't feel supported at whatever level, you feel disconnected, if you feel like they don't understand you, they're not cheering you on, and you kind of need to prove to them, and you feel disconnected, that will drain the hell out of you. And I can guarantee you it's showing up in your business. I can't tell you how many times I get messages from my clients, emails, messages, texts, they'll say, you know what, I feel drained because I feel disconnected from my wife or from my husband. I feel drained because we can't seem to get on the same page. We don't have a common vision. We don't have a common path. And by the way, just having kids does not mean you have a common path. Yes, you're taking care of the same little beings, but you might still be living like roommates. So if you don't have that part of your life handled, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, I can guarantee you, it's slowing you down by 70%. And you might still be moving forward because you have the capacity and awareness and drive to. But imagine how fast you could go forward if that 70% was freed up and given to you by the support, by encouragement, by understanding, by having that common vision with your life partner. Now, on top of that, about 20-30% of the impact in your life is by the social group you're around. And that could be your family, friends, your peer groups. Think about how they are. Are they supportive? Are they understanding? Do they give you feedback? Do they challenge you to grow? If you don't have a peer group like that, you're not growing. I guarantee you, especially on top of that, if you have a lot of naysayers, if you have a lot of negative people around you, I guarantee you they're pulling you down. So if you combine those two things, your life partner and your peer group, if those two are not working, I guarantee you well over 90% of the time you feel drained. And you can check in with yourself. Look at your day-to-day life. You don't have to take my word for it. Observe a little bit more and you will notice that that's why it is happening. And you might not even notice it in the beginning, but as you think about the conversations that you have, think about how you feel when you walk in the door. Do you feel excited when you walk in the door to see your wife or husband? Or do you feel like, oh man, I got to deal with this person? Do you feel supported when you leave? When you're at work, do you feel like you can focus and fully trust that that part of your life is taken care of? You don't have to worry about that. Some things to think about. Finally, the last part, I left it at the end. It's connected to your spiritual well-being, but it's specifically your sense of purpose. As somebody who is a high achiever, or if you're an entrepreneur, or you want to be an investor, or you are an investor or an entrepreneur of some kind, you are already ambitious. That ambition drives you a lot. So the challenge is that drive is not as sustainable as you think. You will keep doing things in a very reactionary way. And the reason for that is because you don't have a clear vision and a sense of purpose yet. Your vision and your sense of purpose, what they are is, your vision is, what is that thing, that ultimate reality that you're working towards that truly matters to you. Your why is connected to it. Your drive is connected to it. Your values are connected to it. Your identity is connected to it. If you don't know exactly and clearly what that is, you are pulling yourself by your bootstraps and you're forcing yourself to work every day towards some unknown future. And when I talk about vision and purpose, it doesn't live in the future only. You kind of have to think about it in the future. But once you become clear about it, you live that vision and that purpose in your day-to-day right now. And that will drive you more than anything else. Even if you're not taking care of yourself fully, physically, mentally, emotionally, even if you're struggling with your relationships, that sense of purpose will drive you. In fact, it will challenge you to make your relationships better, your awareness better, your so many aspects of your life better. Because you know that thing is much bigger than you. That sense of purpose is much bigger than you. That could be, for example, for me, it's incredibly important to pass on what I've learned, because I struggled with that for a long time, and I watch a lot of very important and really close people to me struggle because they didn't have the awareness to make decisions for themselves. They were driven by social factors, by the collective mind. They didn't have a sense of an internal compass to who they were. They didn't have the thought process. I didn't have it. When I realized what that was, life became so much better. It became so much more fulfilling. It became so much happier. It became more peaceful. It still had its challenges. Life always has its challenges, but I started to grow much faster. And so for me, it's incredibly important for me to pass this on, not just to the people that I work with, but also with my family and friends and everybody else. And I'm driven by that internally because, one, it's connected to my story and past, and two, it's connected to who I am and my identity that I'm building. And also, I'm also driven by creating a better world for those around me, and also being a contributor in this world. And that sense of purpose is clear as the screen I see in front of me, or all the objects that I can touch in front of me. And this is why I'm driven by that. Now, most people are not aware of that long-term vision, what that is. So they keep jumping ship from one thing to another thing, and they struggle, they slow themselves down. And especially, like I said, investors, entrepreneurs, because they tend to be on the creative side. They love novelty, and they keep jumping from one thing to another because they're not clear. Again, as a summary, your sense of well-being, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, your awareness as a human being that goes deeper than just your social obligations. And the third one is your relationship with your spouse and the closest people around you, the impact that they have on you. The fourth one is your sense of purpose and vision. If you don't have those things, then you're struggling. I would guess that you're using about 10 to 15% of maybe your potential. Most of it is untapped. If that is true for you, type #call so we can get on a call, or type #vision so I can share my course with you completely for free. You just have to join my group. You just need to join my group that has a lot of amazing investors and entrepreneurs in it that are growing and that are going to support you to grow. So it'll meet two purposes. One, you will get the information you need to grow very fast. This is a process I've built myself. And two, you will get this peer and support group that will help you to grow. Now, I hope this was really helpful. And please share your thoughts and insights and what stuck out for you, what stood out for you in your life. The more we share and the more vulnerable we are, the more we can support other people around us and we can learn from each other. What have you learned in your life? Or any of these true? If they're not, I'm completely okay. You can completely disagree. But please share below. I'm excited to look at your comments until my next conversation. Hope you have an incredible day. Bye.